But it's never too late to start planning for retirement, even in your 50s. What steps you should be taking to build wealth with retirement right around the corner? Joining us to answer that question and a whole lot more, Chris Hogan of the Ramsey Group. He's author of the book Retire Inspired. Chris, what do you do if you're in your 50s and you're, quite frankly, frightened about your coming retirement?
Yeah, Dagan, I would say the first thing that they need to do is just take a deep breath and relax, because you still have some time. But what you want to do is start to get very intentional. You know, a lot of times in your 50s, you can feel like you deserve some things, a new house or a new boat. We just have to be careful of not letting lifestyle get in the way of our dreams later on.
Chris, what are some of the biggest retirement moves that people should be making? Like, give us some specific ideas.
Well, I think first and foremost, I would say, Dagan, tap into what it is you see yourself doing in retirement. Remember, it's not the end, it's the beginning of the best time of your life. So I would say sit down and really start to analyze, where am I? How much money do I have? What do we need to do to go further, faster? And definitely get connected with an investment professional, somebody that has the heart of a teacher, to start to identify some ways that you can catch up or go faster.
Hey, Chris, it's Mike Murphy. I think one of the things that a lot of people miss out on is starting early, because, you know, you talk about people in their 50s, but really the key here, or kind of the golden rule, would be the power of compounding. So I think for me, I have 6 young kids at home, and most important thing, I want them to save money now so that it grows for them, and that compounding can be kind of the biggest trick to a good retirement.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I think time and compound interest are your 2 financial best friends. And so the earlier you can get started, the better off you're going to be. So if you're a millennial, get plugged into your 401k or your 403b as soon as possible. But don't touch that money. That money is there for you for the future.
Chris, Leah Gabriel here. For people who are maxing out their 401ks, who are maxing out their retirement savings, but they have a little extra money now that they may not have once they've had a family, they've had kids, that kind of thing, where are some ideas for where they should put their money?
Well, they still have some additional options. For example, you can take a look at, obviously, Roth IRAs, which can have some income limits, but it's a great opportunity to grow some money tax-free. But don't forget, you can still invest for retirement outside of retirement type of accounts. What I mean by that is, if you're maxing out your 401k and 403b, you still have an opportunity to invest in mutual funds outside of retirement, and there's no limit on how much you can put aside. So definitely get connected and understand those options and plug into them sooner than later.
A great savings vehicle, Chris, is buying a home, and a new study finds that most millennials want to buy homes but then not save for them. Nearly 70% of millennials said they've saved less than $1,000 for a down payment. About 40% say they aren't saving anything on a monthly basis. What's behind that trend? And listen, home sales have been doing really well this year, and a lot of that, you know, by real estate experts, has been attributed to young people are finally moving out of their parents' homes or finally moving out of apartments they've been renting.
Well, I would say this. First and foremost, let's acknowledge that owning a home is a privilege, not a mandate. And so I would say, in the reality now for millennials, you've got student loan debt is an issue. You've got the pricing. They're not saving, and they're right now living paycheck to paycheck. So if I'm a millennial and they were intentional, and if I was coaching them about buying a home, I would tell them, get yourself out of debt, build up an emergency fund, and then start to save for a down payment. It's not something that's going to happen automatically. So get a second or third job and devote that money entirely to a down payment.
Chris, it's Caitlin. What are some incentives that you think that millennials should have to buy homes? I mean, it's very much, there's this kind of sharing economy that we have. Millennials, as you mentioned, have grown up in an economy that's never really worked for them. You mentioned student debt. How can they kind of get out of that? And what's the incentive, you would say, for young people to make this purchase?
Well, I would say don't ever buy a home unless you see yourself living there for 3 to 5 years. I mean, let's face it, if you buy a home, then you have to sell a home to be able to move forward. So slow down. Renting is not a crime. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you're settled in your career or in a location and you see yourself, like I said, being there 3 to 5 years, then it's a good idea to buy a home. The other thing I would tell millennials, when you buy a home and something breaks, you get to fix it. So it's not like with renting.
You're talking to people, Chris, about money is so difficult. Because, again, if I'm 25 and you're telling me I need to save and put money in my 401k plan, I'm like, well, what about going to Cancun on vacation? Like, good luck with that. But does it help if the parents start early and take this approach in having conversations with their kids. What about, and how do you begin that conversation? And what do they do when it comes to, with adult children, talking about inheritance?
Yeah.
How about you're not getting any because I'm spending it?
Well, listen, I think parents play a pivotal role in kids understanding how money works. Let's face it, money is something you're going to have to deal with all your life. And so the sooner parents can teach their kids to spend, save, and give, the better off they're going to be later in life. When it comes to an inheritance, let's acknowledge this is something parents are intentionally doing. They're leaving it to their kids. But I think they need to talk with their kids and their adult children about how money works and prepare them to handle this money so they don't squander it.
Chris, I think that this is actually part of the problem why more people don't save for retirement, because they somehow expect that they're going to get some, phantom nest egg from their parents when their parents die. I'm not joking. That people, they don't talk to their parents about, hey, how much money do you guys have set aside? And they just think somebody else is going to come along, whether it's the federal government through Social Security or even their parents, to save them in retirement so they can spend what they earn now.
No, you're right. And it's scary, Dagan, because, obviously you and I know Social Security is not going to provide enough for you to live your dreams. That's scary. But to bank on your parents leaving you money is a dangerous, dangerous thing. I've met people and coached people that were banking on, literally, their parents leaving them a boatload of money, and that's not something you can do. What we've got to do in America is get intentional about our dreams and get serious about our plan. We've got to put aside money and not wait on anybody to save the day. We've got to get our own cape and provide for our future.
Right. It's like you show up after not having been home for 8 months, and there's like an entire wing that's been added to your parents' house with a giant bathroom and dressing room for your mother, and then a man cave in the basement for your dad. And they're like, here's your inheritance. Enjoy it. I'm actually not kidding. I've seen that happen. Chris, it was great to see you. As always,
thank you for having me.
Have a terrific weekend, Chris Hogan.